When you think of Genghis Khan's army, you probably picture a million warriors on horseback, a blur of bows and blades, an unstoppable force that swallowed continents. To the people of Persia, Russia, and China, the Mongol horde looked like the end of the world, a divine punishment, but it was never mindless. The terror they unleashed wasn't just a byproduct of their conquests, it was the entire point. It was a strategy, calculated and ruthlessly efficient. Genghis Khan understood a simple truth. A terrified enemy is already a defeated enemy. An army paralyzed by dread will scatter. A city that has already surrendered in its heart will throw open its gates. Why waste your own soldiers on a long, bloody siege when you can win the war before it even begins? This wasn't just brutality. It was psychological warfare on a scale the world had never seen. The Mongol strategy boiled down to one simple choice they offered every city and kingdom in their path: surrender or die. There was no third option, no negotiation, no mercy for those who fought back. They sent envoys ahead of their armies to deliver the ultimatum: submit to the Khan, pay the tribute, and your city will be spared. Resist, and it will be wiped from the face of the earth. And it was a promise they kept, with terrifying consistency. Long before the thunder of hooves was heard on the horizon, the first Mongol attack had already begun. But the attackers weren't soldiers. They were spies, merchants, and diplomats, the advance team for the war on the mind. Genghis Khan built an intelligence network that was years ahead of its time. His spies would slip into enemy kingdoms, sometimes for years, posing as simple traders or holy men. They'd map out fortifications, learn about political rivalries, and get a feel for the army's morale. They were looking for the cracks in a kingdom's foundation, so they'd know exactly where to hit. But their most important job was to spread stories. They planted rumors about the Mongols' unstoppable power. They whispered tales that the horde was born from demons, that they were inhumanly strong, and that their cruelty knew no bounds. They would find unhappy nobles or oppressed groups and turn them against their own rulers, weakening the kingdom from the inside out. They even turned prisoners into a propaganda tool. After a city was brutally destroyed, the Mongols would intentionally let a few terrified survivors escape. These people would flee to the next city down the road, becoming the most powerful messengers the Mongols could ask for. Their wild-eyed stories of slaughter and destruction did more damage than any soldier. By the time the actual Mongol army appeared, their reputation had already done half the fighting. Panic, mistrust, and despair were the invisible siege engines, tearing down a city's will to resist. For the Mongol war machine, a threat was a promise. To make sure the entire world understood that, they needed to make examples. Two cities in the powerful Khwarezmian Empire would become their most infamous lessons in terror: Samarkand and Nishapur. What followed was a methodical slaughter. The entire population, men, women, and children, was wiped out. Later chroniclers, trying to capture the sheer horror of the event, wrote that 1.7 million people were killed. That number is almost certainly a wild exaggeration, as the city's population was likely in the tens of thousands, but the goal was total annihilation. To make sure no one was just wounded, soldiers were ordered to behead everyone, supposedly piling the skulls into gruesome pyramids as a warning to the rest of the world. The message could not have been clearer. The Mongols don't make empty threats. Surrender is your only hope. Resistance means annihilation. This psychological warfare didn't just happen at the city gates. Out on the open battlefield, the Mongols were, honestly, masters of illusion, turning an enemy's own mind against them. One of their signature moves was the feigned retreat. Mongol horse archers would charge, fire a few volleys, and then pretend to panic and flee. Armies that were overconfident or undisciplined would almost always fall for it, breaking formation to chase what they thought was a beaten enemy. And that's exactly what the Mongols wanted. The fleeing horsemen would lead them straight into a perfectly laid trap, where the main Mongol army was waiting to surround and destroy them. Generals from Hungary to China fell for this trick over and over because it plays on the basic human desire for a quick victory. The Mongols also knew how to make their armies seem much larger than they were. At night, every soldier might be ordered to light 3 or even 5 fires, making a small force look like a massive one from a distance. They would tie branches to their horses' tails to kick up huge dust clouds, hiding their true numbers and creating the impression of a much bigger army on the move. They even mounted dummies on their spare horses to pad out their ranks. They paired these visual tricks with terrifying sounds. They used special arrows notched to whistle and scream as they flew, a sound that could unnerve even the most hardened soldiers. Before a charge, the deafening rhythmic pounding of their massive war drums would build an atmosphere of pure dread. These weren't just clever tactics. They were psychological attacks, designed to create chaos, break an enemy's nerve, and win the battle before the real fighting even started. The Mongol Empire, the largest continuous land empire in history, wasn't just built with swords and bows. Of course, their brilliant cavalry tactics and unmatched logistical skills were critical to their success. But it was built on a terrifyingly simple and brutal idea. That fear was the sharpest weapon of all. Through a calculated campaign of spies, propaganda, and horrific examples, Genghis Khan and his sons waged war on the minds of their enemies. They understood that true conquest isn't just about taking territory, it's about destroying the will to fight back. The pyramids of skulls, the ghost armies on the horizon, the chilling choice between submission and oblivion. These were the weapons that brought an entire continent to its knees. The physical empire of the Mongols eventually broke apart, but their legacy of weaponized fear has echoed down through history. A dark reminder that sometimes the most terrifying weapon is the one you can't even see. If this look into the dark psychology of Mongol warfare fascinated you, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most brilliant and brutal strategies. Let us know in the comments, what other historical tactics completely changed the game? Thanks for watching.